Ian, Paul, great to have you on Close Quarter today. We'll be covering a lot of topics in our conversation, but it makes sense to start with the rebrand. So you were formerly known as Sequel and have, of course, recently undergone a rebrand to formally and fully join the Verisk family. So how does this mark the start of a new chapter in developing solutions for the global marketplace?
Great, thanks for that super starting question. I think as most people know, Sequel were acquired by Verisk a number of years ago. And since then, we've been trying to work the two brands in parallel to raise the profile of Verisk in the London market and raise the profile of Sequel actually more internationally. Now that's been hugely successful. I think there's been a recent Grace Church report which has shown that the number 1 and 2 brands in the London technology market from a trust perspective are Sequel and Verisk, so that's great. So pulling the two brands together makes real sense for us now. Leading with that power of Verisk, but the strength of the applications and the delivery techniques from the Sequel brand. So Sequel's now become Verisk Specialty Business Solutions, along with a number of other of the Verisk assets. So AIR has become part of the Verisk branding, so has ISO become part of the Verisk branding. So for us going forward now, we represent more of a combined unit to our customers.
There's also a client angle to this. There's a huge family of products under the Verisk empire, from the data side to the products, the solutions. So having one brand really helps the clients navigate to what they need in the insurance life cycle. We can support everything from that data solution to the software product. So it really helps the client engagement element to what we're doing, putting those brands together.
Thank you both very much for the opening context. So moving forward, how has the influence of technology evolved specifically in the last couple of years as we've all had to adjust to remote working and how the demand has changed?
Well, the obvious answer to this starts with the word digital. We've struggled in the London market for many years to get over that hill, and through the pandemic we've seen that become a necessity. So it's really allowed us to align ourselves to our clients, help them become more digital. It's the key focus point for a lot of them at the moment. But that's really changed the interaction with the market and how all the transactions have to go through a more connected way, and that forcing through the pandemic's really helped a lot of the market advance in that regard.
Yeah, it's a good point, that forcing through the pandemic. The technology is absolutely vital, and it's accelerating year on year, faster every year as well. But the real change, certainly in London, was the adoption of technology. And the pandemic's helped our clients adopt technology, and that's the real big change I think you've noticed in the last couple of years. That in turn has then led to people thinking, what more can we do digitally? And that's, as Paul said, taken off now.
So as demand has shifted and your customers and clients are sort of more readily adopting technology, what other key trends are you observing?
I think it comes in 3 different areas. First, distribution. And I think what's happened there is, as people have moved from that face-to-face interaction and working from home, they've realised they can really do things digitally. And now they want to try and accelerate that, so they're pushing out their products and services on that digital distribution line. So that's one area. The second one, as you move into that digital world, you're moving data that was handled on paper before into a more electronic format. So data security becomes a really key thing to be mindful of. And then the last one is around that data, enhancing that data, so that our customers, in our case the underwriters and the brokers, can add information, make more informed decisions as they're going through their day-to-day processes.
Well, I think if you'd have asked most insurance executives a few years ago what an API was, I think it would have gone on sort of deaf ears. But I think we've really seen a huge switch from insurers and brokers working through portals, and there was what we term sort of portal wars between inviting people to come to their platform versus another. What we've really seen a shift in recently is actually making business easier to transact with distributing via their APIs and injecting their IP into other people's platforms. That's really allowed London to become more competitive with the US market. So a lot of US distributions now easier to transact with. So I think that's a huge trend we're seeing in moving towards an API first technology base, which has become front and foremost in most boards.
Great, so thank you very much. And of course, as we know, competitiveness is increasingly important. So of course, with trends alongside them are opportunities. So what are these and how is Verisk poised to capture them?
If we go back to those three that we had, the first one being distribution, we have something called the SQL Hub, which is allowing both brokers and underwriters to either add their products and services on the hub and connect to the other one, if you like, a one-to-many relationship. So although Paula mentioned earlier the API connectivity, APIs aren't as plug and play as many think. You certainly today need some central point which feeds those APIs in and out. So you're managing one connection as a customer of ours, but you get the benefit of all of the brokers or all the underwriters at the other side of that. So that distribution opportunity for us is quite key. As I said, it's the connectivity point, which is really important, but also the fact that you can log your products and services on there and push those out. So that's one opportunity we see. And the second area is definitely around that data security point. And so there's a huge investment required to keep up to date with the required, obvious necessity to manage data and look after your customers' data. So we're moving the applications and services into the cloud with a huge investment behind, in our case, AWS, to have the world leading security platform behind that, as well as a service that obviously makes the products software as a service. And then the last space is taking advantage of our parent, Verisk, there's some 19 petabytes of data that surrounds risk information in the insurance market. And that's all becoming available to us to use as part of our products and services within Specialty Business Solutions.
Well, I think Ian's covered a lot of the points. So all I'd add was we've done a lot of work with what we've called the SQL 6, which is some of the leading insurance providers in the London market. What we were seeking to do is APIs are now no longer standard. Everyone has different views and different ways of connectivity. So we brought this group together to help define how connectivity would work. That's been a really successful enterprise. We've got standards out of which we've gifted to Accord, which allows both the broking area of the business and the carriers to connect under a common framework. So that's really supported how our SQL Hub can allow people to connect once, access many platforms, or access once and access many markets. So that's been a real benefit to the change.
Over the last several years, we've seen a lot of new capital entrants coming into the market, and there's no signs of that slowing down. But how are you supporting them?
I think we've spoken about the investments we've made in distribution, in data security and hosting, and also adding the data assets into our applications. So what we've done to that point is built a really solid base.
I think we've been lucky to work with most of the new entrants to the market, from the rise of the MGA up to the huge broking and the capital that's gone into the new underwriting teams and departments and companies that have started. So having a platform that we can pull together the Verisk data, the Verisk software, the underpinning of the security, allowing a new entrant to start up with that understanding of that experience, the speed to market that they need, really has put us in a fabulous position to help new entrants get that foothold, get that accreditation and launch into new markets as soon as they can. So that's been a real benefit from our position.
Great, thank you very much. Of course, we know the Whitespace platform is a popular one. So what role will it play in the London market going forward, and of course in other global trading?
So Whitespace is our digital platform for that open market space. It's got plans to grow wider than that, but as you'll know, it focuses very much on that user experience. So Whitespace has been driven by the user base. We've got some great research been done by Grace Church recently, which just demonstrates the appeal that it has, or shows that appeal. Now that we see, and it has done for the last 2 years, month on month, increase the number of users and the number of transactions that have gone through the platform. We see that continue to grow. It's a user-led solution for the market, and I think we'll see that become the default position in the London market. Once you've got the default position in the London market, that opens it up much easier for international players to come into the London market, which is one of the goals of digital distribution and electronic placing, is to make London a more attractive place to trade with. You've got to get all the markets on side first, get those on side, then open up to the international marketplace. And we've already seen some progress in the US.
Well, I'd say looking to the future a bit with Whitespace, it's really exciting. Certainly, we do a lot of work in the slot rated and distribution and the sort of algorithmic trading, which is becoming obviously increasingly more popular. However, there's always a gulf between a piece of business that comes in that fits that model and wants something that sits outside. With Whitespace, looking to the future, we'll be able to take a slot rated piece of business that's more complicated and share that with Whitespace to close in a negotiated open market facility. So it allows us to move both ways. It doesn't have to fit one pigeonhole. We can be much more fluid in the way that London and the platforms can accept and transact business.
Thank you very much. So sticking with the future, when we think about the rest of the year, what is your outlook?
I think for us the important thing now is really taking advantage of the technology which is already in place. We're badging it when we're talking to the likes of SQL 6 to collaborate to compete. So we're working in a number of areas where we're bringing together markets and brokers to trade their business together. So as I said, the technology is there. It's now adoption that's key. We've got a great start with Whitespace and with the SQL Hub. We now need to get the businesses talking to each other effectively, and that's really our focus for the rest of the year, is adoption.
And I think a lot of what we do is client driven. So the great thing of working with our client base is that innovation and that forward thinking comes primarily out of them. We are a facilitator to that. So we've had some really exciting conversations with the SQL 6 and our client base to look at which products are better for distribution, how we can help the market get there faster. Working with a smaller nucleus, it certainly allows us to cut through a lot of the red tape that we might see otherwise. So it's exciting, and I think with our client base that we've got, we're in a really interesting position to have a promising year.
Great. Well, listen, thank you both very much, and a lot of really exciting objectives there, which of course at the Insurer we look forward to following the progress of those. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.